Dancing on Deception by Shimon. Prologue. The moon hung high above the grand estate like a watchful eye, the whispers of the court weaving tales of romance and betrayal. Beatrix Caldwell, concealed beneath the guise of a male scholar, felt the weight of expectations pressing down upon her shoulders like a shroud. In a world where women were relegated to the shadows, she dared to step into the light, determined to carve a path that defied the norms of Regency society. But lurking in the depths of those fine halls was a man cloaked in mystery and danger, Yadiel Sinclair, the dark prince of the underworld, whose mere presence sent shivers of both fear and intrigue through the hearts of those who knew his name. Little did Beatrix realize, her accidental trespass into his world would unleash a torrent of secrets, leading her to a fateful encounter that would change the course of her life. For she knew not only was she playing a part in a grand masquerade, but she was also awakening memories of a love long lost to time, igniting a passion that would either lead to their salvation or their ruin. Scene 1. The Enigmatic Scholar. The atmosphere in the grand ballroom crackled with an electric energy, the air thick with the scent of blooming lilacs and freshly polished wood. Guests clad in opulent silks and velvet whispered conspiratorially, the soft murmur punctuated by the occasional clink of crystal glasses. The faint sound of a string quartet drifted from the corner, weaving through the room like a silken thread. "Is it true what they say?" whispered a lady in a sapphire gown, her fingers draped casually over a jeweled goblet. "The head of the Sinclair family is in danger?" Beatrix Caldwell, impeccably disguised as a male scholar named Beauregard, paused mid-sip of her punch, a strange blend of sweet and tart that tingled on her tongue. Her keen ears honed in on the snippet of conversation, heart racing at the mention of Yadiel Sinclair, the powerful crime boss whose enigmatic charm and shadowy dealings intrigued her. "Danger?" another voice interjected, a man with an elaborate powdered wig, his expression a mix of glee and mockery. "If I were a betting man, I'd wager his life expectancy is shorter than that of this fine evening's festivities." The whispers are relentless. Someone seeks to dethrone him permanently. A flicker of concern coursed through Beatrix's veins as she discreetly adjusted her collar, attempting to mask her unease. The crowd around her swayed like the evening breeze ruffling the sheer drapes. Were they really talking about Yadiel? The very Yadiel Sinclair who embodied strength and vulnerability in equal measure, a man she had never expected to admire. "You think that's true, then?" the lady pressed, leaning in closer, her voice dropping to a conspiratorial tone. "I heard it was a betrayal from within." The suggestion of treachery sent a chill down Beatrix's spine. She had met Yadiel only once, and their brief exchange had sparked a connection far beyond the mere political affiliations they shared. What if these rumors turned out to be more than just idle gossip? With this thought swirling, the masquerade felt less like a celebration of wealth and status, and more like an elaborate cover for impending violence. A sudden crash echoed through the hall as a nearby table toppled over, drawing the attention of all to a young man, red-faced and agitated, his voice piercing the air. "I'll not be treated like a pawn in this game," he shouted, his finger pointing accusingly at a still figure near the corner. The assembled guests turned, breaths hitching in collective tension. "Calm yourself," the man in the corner replied coolly, his dark eyes glinting like polished obsidian. Yadiel himself, looking magnificent in a deep crimson waistcoat, brushed his hair back with an almost languid grace. "If you cannot handle the truth, you should have stayed home with your toys." "Truth," the young man retorted, his voice trembling with indignation. "You've twisted truths your whole life. Do you expect loyalty when you deal in deceit?" The air grew thick, the smell of fear and bravado weaving around them as Yadiel took a step closer, the calmness of his demeanor contrasting sharply with the storm brewing on the floor. "If betrayal is your fear, you ought not be among those who embrace shallow loyalty," he replied, his voice smooth but edged with steel. Beatrix's pulse quickened. Could she step closer? Set aside her disguise for a moment, just to glimpse the world of shadows he inhabited? Yet the revelation of a betrayal, potentially life-threatening, lingered like a cloud ready to burst. "Isn't loyalty just another name for obligation?" the lady in sapphire asked, sipping her drink with an air of detached amusement. the young man scoffed. Obligation binds you to the purpose you've forsaken, not the loyalties you feign. One can only be loyal to truth. The discussion spiraled, drawing in more members of the assembly. Voices collided like swords on a battlefield, proclamations of loyalty jostling for dominance amidst the fray. Subtle glances were exchanged across the room, wary, calculating. The moment felt like an orchestra tuning for the crescendo of chaos. I wonder, Beatrix murmured to herself, momentarily lost in the torrent of conflicting opinions, how much of his truth is hidden behind those impassive eyes? Her heart raced with both fear and undeniable intrigue, compelling her to delve deeper into this perilous web of deception. Risk she'd taken to wear these borrowed clothes paled in comparison to the depths that lay ahead, a world that could either shatter or ignite something beautiful within her. A small smile crept onto her lips, elated by the thrill of the chase, of the unknown intricacies that beckoned her further into Yadiel's world. Secrets whispered in the shadows danced behind her eyelids, an intoxicating invitation to discover the hidden lines of danger that neatly wrapped around romance and treachery. As the gala pulsed with tension and promise, she leaned closer, half listening, half dreaming of the encounter that awaited her. Scene 2. A dangerous encounter. The narrow cobblestone alley shimmered with the moisture of an impending storm, the heavy scent of rain mingling with the stench of damp refuse. Beatrix Caldwell pressed herself against the damp, cool stone of the wall, her heart racing. She had spent the last hour tailing Yadiel Sinclair's illicit dealings, her sharp instincts leading her deeper into a world she barely comprehended. The thrill of investigative success melted into a chill of fear as the shadows around her grew longer, dark figures shifting like ghosts just beyond her line of sight. "Focus," she whispered, her voice barely more than a breath, though the trembling of her hands betrayed her steely resolve. She had come too far to turn back now. The information she sought held the potential to expose the criminal underbelly plaguing her city. The glow of a distant lantern flickered against the walls, casting an orange hue that danced in the damp air. Suddenly, a clamor erupted from somewhere deeper in the alley. The clipped voices of men burst into her consciousness like a thunderclap, pulling her from her thoughts. "You're sure it was him?" One voice growled, low and gravelly. "Positive. He's getting reckless," came another, sharper and younger. Beatrix's pulse quickened, the sound of her heart pounding overtaking the echoes of their conversation. Panic clawed at her throat as she realized she'd stumbled too close to Yadiel's kingdom. Her thoughts raced. She needed to leave, and fast. The alley seemed to shift around her as she prepared to retreat, making her decision abruptly. But just as she turned, her foot slipped on the slick cobblestones, sending her crashing into a crate of old, discarded fruit. The sound of splintering wood and rolling oranges shattered the night, drawing the attention of the men. Beatrix's breath caught in her throat as their heads snapped toward her hiding spot, eyes narrowing with the promise of danger. She scarcely had time to think before she pushed herself up and bolted down the alley, the thumping of her heart keeping time with the echo of her hurried footsteps. "Stop! Get her!" one of the men shouted, and the ensuing chase ensued. Footsteps clawed at her heels like predators closing in on their prey. Desperate, Beatrix veered into another opening, her body pressing against the tattooed fabric of the city's fabric. She sprinted into a narrow court, bile rising in her throat as she searched for an escape route. But the world felt suffocatingly small, no shadows to hide within, only open space and the encroaching threat behind her. Her luck had almost abandoned her when out of nowhere, Yadiel's figure emerged, tall and confident, blocking her way entirely. The lantern behind him lit him in a wash of formidable shadows, his dark eyes sharp and piercing. He appeared like the very embodiment of untamed darkness. "Looking for something?" Yadiel asked, voice a low drawl that vibrated through the tension of the air. He didn't seem surprised to find her there, rather amused. "Get away, Yadiel. They're coming." Beatrix gasped, the urgency painted across her face. "I don't think they want you hurt, darling," he replied, a sardonic smile teasing the corners of his lips. "But it seems your curiosity has landed you in deep waters tonight." Behind him, the sound of heavy footsteps rushed closer, prompting Beatrix's instincts to flare. In an instant, she felt raw vulnerability claw at her. Yadiel, Please, she pleaded, stepping closer. I don't have time for games. I'm in real danger. Games? He scoffed, a flicker of pain flashing through his dark eyes before his expression hardened again. You came here to expose me, yet you find you're the one vulnerable. What a turn of events. Her heart squeezed at the realization that beneath the bravado, Yadiel was just as ensnared by his world as she was by hers. In that moment, everything shifted. The air crackled with tension and unspoken truths. You think I want this? Beatrix said, her voice a fierce whisper, fighting the flames of jealousy flickering in her chest. You think I enjoy this dance with death? Yadiel took a subtle step closer, their breaths mingling. Then let me help you, he said, sincerity lacing his tone, the jagged edges of danger holding them just on the cusp of intimacy. Before either could contemplate the ramifications, the thudding footsteps drew nearer. Yadiel's hand wrapped securely around Beatrix's wrist, urgency radiating from his touch. Stay close, he commanded. Where to? She questioned, a rush of adrenaline propelling them forward. The rooftops, he replied, his tone riddled with defiance and determination. It's time to show you the world beneath the shadows. As they sprinted toward the looming building ahead, a new chapter was beginning to unfold, one that would force them both to confront not only their lies, but the fire between them. Scene 3. Tensions rise at the gala. The grand ballroom at the Calderon estate shimmered like an opulent dream, chandeliers casting a warm glimmer over the lavishly adorned guests that twirled through a symphony of laughter and clinking glasses. Beatrix Caldwell stood at the edge, her meticulously crafted disguise, a tailored evening suit with a subtle sheen, rendering her nearly invisible amidst the swirling colors of silk and lace. She picked at a canapé, her focus shifting as she surveyed the room. Yadiel Sinclair strode into the hall, drawing every eye with an effortless confidence. His presence was magnetic, a storm in a tailored suit that hugged an athletic frame. A sea of marbled eyes faltered when they fell on him, whispers flowing like a ripple through the crowd. He remained blissfully unaware of the attention, his gaze sharp and calculating, scanning his domain. Beatrix caught her breath, her heart pounding as she felt an invisible thread pulling her toward him. There was a depth to his eyes, an intensity that unnerved yet exhilarated her. She seldom felt this, an ache within her, a longing not just for him, but for the very world he represented, a world alive yet fraught with peril. "Are you all right, my lord?" a fellow guest inquired, misreading her tension. "Yes, quite," Beatrix replied, forcing a smile. The words felt like paper, thin and insubstantial. The music shifted, a lively waltz encouraging couples to sway and glide, but Beatrix remained frozen, as if the universe had conspired just for her. When Yadiel's gaze locked onto hers, the atmosphere shifted, the air thickened, time slowed. A spark ignited, sending a jolt through her limbs. "Fancy a dance?" A smooth voice nudged her from behind, spinning her round to face Solomon Banks, Yadiel's second in command, as he flashed a knowing grin. "I," she hesitated, glancing back at Yadiel, who stood now at the center, his attention unwavering. "I could charm you onto the dance floor," Solomon teased, his posture relaxed but his eyes keen, reading her hesitation. "Just not today," Beatrix said, her voice steadier than she felt. She turned away, isolating herself further from the jovial celebrations, eyes only for Yadiel. Yadiel approached, a shadow weaving through the brightness, his aura dark yet inviting. The world melted around them as he captured her gaze within a steely grip, drawing her isolated breath into a shared tension. "I see you've chosen your disguise wisely," he said, a slight smirk playing on his lips. "Disguise is merely a tool for survival," Beatrix replied, the sharpness of the moment both thrilling and unnerving. "And what tool will you brandish tonight, Yadiel Sinclair?" He stepped closer, his nearness a magnetic pull, one that cuts to the truth, he murmured, both an invitation and a challenge. The heat of his breath brushed against her skin, setting off tiny fireworks that danced delightfully under her flesh. Across the ballroom, laughter erupted, and the atmosphere crackled as Yadiel's men exchanged whispers. The tension thickened, the stakes rising as shadows of a rival syndicate lurked just beyond the expanse of polished marble. "Do you sense the danger, Beatrix?" Yadiel asked, his expression shifting from charisma to something more serious, a pointed edge of concern creasing his brow. "Danger is the price of curiosity," Something I seem to be willing to pay again and again, she admitted, the words escaping like a breath held too long. Yadiel considered this, his eyes narrowing slightly. Careful. Curiosity can lead one to a perilous end. Is that not what makes life worth living? She countered, emboldened by their proximity, the rhythmic pulse of the music echoing her racing heart. Before he could respond, a sharp cry cut through the revelries as glasses shattered against the marble, a brawl igniting across the room. Yadiel's instinct kicked in. He turned to assess the chaos, but not before seizing Beatrix's wrist, drawing her to his side. This is my world, and you're not safe in it, Yadiel warned, urgency lacing his tone. Yet here I stand, she challenged, relishing the adrenaline surging in parallel with their entwined fates. The brawl intensified, fists flying amid shouts of betrayal and vengeful pride. Yet in the midst of the ruckus, their connection thrummed like a rebellious symphony, a bond ignited against the backdrop of conflict. Amid the chaos, Beatrix had never felt so alive, so utterly consumed by the thrill of standing at Yadiel's side, ready to fight, or perhaps to flee together. Let's dance, he urged, dragging her away from the violence, their laughter mingling with the chaos, a fleeting reminder of the joy that existed even when life threatened to unravel. Scene 4. Allies in the Shadows. The sun hung low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue over the opulent sitting room of Yadiel Sinclair's estate. An ornate chandelier glittered, its crystals refracting the light into 1,000 dancing specks across the polished mahogany table. The scent of rich leather mingled with the faint aroma of fresh cigars, creating an atmosphere that should have felt relaxed, yet tension thrummed beneath the surface. Yadiel paced slowly, his polished shoes gliding softly over the intricate Persian carpet. The room felt too small, the walls almost closing in around him. He removed his black jacket and hung it over a nearby chair, revealing the crisp white shirt that clung to his toned frame, a thin layer hiding the tumult of emotions boiling just beneath the surface. Seated around the table were his most trusted advisors, Kendrick with his hawk-like gaze, Orion with a smirk that teetered between humor and mischief, and Ramona with her fierce, protective demeanor. They each sipped their drinks with the casualness of men and women who had stared death in the face before. This new rival syndicate is not just a nuisance, they're a shadow growing stronger, Kendrick said, his deep voice steady but laced with urgency. Their enforcement is more organized than we anticipated. We need a strategy, Yadiel. Yadiel paused, his brow furrowing slightly as he clenched his fists at his side, considering Kendrick's words. The moment hung heavy in the air, and silence spread as they all understood the gravity of their current situation. There's more at stake than just our territory, Ramona added, her eyes narrowing with determination. If we don't act, we risk losing everything we've built. Orion leaned back in his chair, crossing his arms. It's a matter of time before they come for our heads. Any sign of weakness. It's blood in the water, Yadiel. Frustration flickered across Yadiel's face, but it was quickly masked. He took a moment to breathe, to push back against the rising tide of fear. What he kept buried deep inside swelled like a gathering storm, and the thought of being vulnerable before his allies felt like a betrayal. He lifted his chin, deploying his confident mask as he spoke. Then we become the storm, Yadiel said, his tone low and deliberate. We strike first, find their vulnerabilities. I will not be the one on the defensive. As they discussed their plans, Beatrix stood just outside the doorway, unnoticed. She pulled back slightly, feeling like an intruder in a world she had only recently begun to understand. There's so much Yadiel carries, she thought, a sense of empathy flooding her senses. A wave of longing washed over her, his determination ignited something inside her, a fierce desire to stand with him amid the chaos. Kendrick's voice broke through her thoughts. And what of the ball next week? They know you'll be there. It's the perfect opportunity for them. Yadiel rubbed his temples, a telltale sign of the pressure he's under. I'll manage. I'm not hiding anymore. Once again, the silence felt thick, heavy. The unspoken words lingered in the air, each pause shouting louder than the last. It was in that charged moment of stillness that Yadiel felt an unexpected connection with Beatrix. They were worlds apart, yet in those stolen glances, their spirits entwined more tightly than they ever could have anticipated. Unbeknownst to Yadiel, Beatrix took a step closer, her heart racing as she glanced through the crack in the door. She could see the tension crackling between him and his advisors, read the desperation in his eyes. Her breath caught in her throat as she imagined being there, supporting him, fighting by his side. Yadiel's steely resolve softened as he turned to face the room, glancing briefly in Beatrix's direction, even though she remained hidden. "We rise to meet the darkness that threatens us, together." His voice was low, but the finality in it resonated through the room, commanding attention and respect. She felt herself draw in a breath, the sound lost in the weight of his declaration. In the shadows, she was aware of the shadows creeping across his heart, and a fierce longing to reach out, to pull him back from the brink, enveloped her, but she remained a ghost, anchored by fear and doubt. "Are we allies in this?" Kendrick asked, breaking the reverie. "Or adversaries?" Yadiel's lips curled into a slight smile, resolute. "That's for them to decide." And with that, Beatrix slipped away, her heart pounding against her chest, a beautiful, aching resonance that echoed her resolve in the face of his mounting troubles. For the first time, she felt like an ally forming in the shadows, ready to step into the light when the moment called. Scene 5, a most complicated relationship. The evening air was thick with tension as Beatrix Caldwell paced along the broken cobblestones of a shadowed alley, her heart drumming a chaotic rhythm against the confines of her chest. Bathed in the silver glow of the moonlight, the damp stones glistened like the poisoned truths she carried in her pocket. Only hours before, she had glossed over her disguise, from tips of her pulled-back hair hidden beneath a worn hat to the fitted jacket that smothered her curves. Beneath it all, she fought to steady her breath, aware that any misstep could unravel her carefully crafted ruse. Yadiel Sinclair emerged from the shadows, his presence both magnetic and suffocating. The way he carried himself loose, yet capable of erupting into action at any moment, only added to the anxiety brewing in Beatrix's gut. She squinted against the flickering lantern light that illuminated his face, catching the glint of a smirk dancing on the contours of his lips. "Up to your usual mischief, I see," Yadiel said, his deep voice reverberating like a distant thunderstorm. "More like keeping my head above water," Beatrix shot back, holding his gaze with a fierceness that belied her quivering insides. "Am I to be held accountable for your dealings, Mr. Sinclair?" He laughed, unrestrained, amused eyes sparkling with a mischief that set her heart ablaze. "Mischief? Hardly. I was here on business, but clearly I stumbled upon something more intriguing." The air flickered with the heat of unspoken words, and in that charged silence, Beatrix felt him drawing closer. "Intriguing? What would you know of intrigue?" She challenged, determined to keep the edge in her voice, even as her body betrayed her with a visceral reaction. "Humanity, for one," Yadiel replied, tilting his head slightly, allowing a silken, dark lock of hair to fall over his forehead. "Or perhaps mere curiosity, since you've gone to great lengths to mask your true self." Beatrix clenched her fists, grounding herself in the moment while her thoughts raced. She would not be intimidated. "Perhaps I'm just looking for a little thrill," she countered, though her words felt slim, fleeting, even as they left her lips. "Thrill? Is that what you call it?" He stepped even closer, the distance between them virtually gone. She could feel the heat radiating from his body as if it were a palpable force, drawing her in. Or is it desperation painted in the bright strokes of rebellion? Beatrix opened her mouth, searching for a retort, but the rasp of truth cut through her defenses. Silence enveloped them, heavy with the weight of their shared secrets, punctuated by the occasional rustle of the city beyond the flickering lanterns. The alley, a stark contrast to the brightly lit masquerade ball just 2 blocks away, felt like the nerve center of their burgeoning war. What started as a mere skirmish of half-hearted taunts was spiraling, her mind racing with the possible outcomes. This was more treacherous than she had anticipated. "Leave me be, Yadiel," she finally murmured, instinctively aware of how her heartbeat synchronized with his. "You've got your territory. I would appreciate mine. But what if our territories are about to collide?" he asked, his voice softer now, darker, the playful banter shifting into something far more serious. "Then we fight," she replied, surprising herself with her boldness. "After all, it was you who chose to play this game." A flicker of something genuine passed between them, a challenge igniting behind his copper eyes. Or perhaps we've already begun. And just like that, the air shifted, crackling with electricity. Beatrix could no longer hold on to her pretense. Yadiel's world was threatening to drag her down, and she didn't know whether she wanted to resist or join him. "Shall we dance, then?" he murmured, amusement lacing through his tone, a half-smirk tugging at his lips as he extended a hand, palm open and inviting. With that gesture, the dance of danger and desire began without music, only the throbbing pulse of two daring hearts caught in a forbidden game. Scene 6. Secrets Revealed. The room was heavy with the scent of polished mahogany and the faintest hint of tobacco smoke, remnants of late-night discussions that lingered like shadows in the corners. Sunlight streamed through the tall windows, illuminating dust motes that danced like invisible spirits. Beatrix Caldwell stood just inside Yadiel Sinclair's quarters, her heart a cacophony of emotions as she shifted her weight from one foot to the other, the plush carpet cradling her every movement. The room was a testament to Yadiel's life, a storm of elegance and danger. A sprawling desk, cluttered with papers and ink pots, sat beneath an enormous portrait of a regal ancestor, eyes seeming to follow her every breath. Yet it was the silence that was most deafening. It enveloped her, a constant reminder of the uncharted waters into which she had ventured. Glancing over her shoulder as if the walls were eavesdropping, Beatrix stepped deeper into the room, her hand brushing along the edges of Yadiel's belongings, each surface echoing the unresolved tension that crackled between them. Was it truly just admiration she felt for him, or something more desperate, more fierce? She shook her head, ridding her thoughts of these dangerous waves. As she navigated the room, her fingers discovered a hidden drawer, slightly ajar. Curiosity piqued. Beatrix hesitated before pulling it open, its groan startling in the hushed atmosphere. Inside lay a collection of letters, yellowed with age, tied together with a fraying ribbon. She felt an unseen power calling her, as if the very fabric of Yadiel's soul lay beneath that ribbon. Beatrix carefully unwound it, the letters fluttering like captive birds set free. Her breath caught in her throat as she began to read, eyes racing over carefully penned words. The letters painted a portrait of a man, grappling with the shadows of his own existence, detailing moments of pain and a diagnosis that made her heart race with dread. The ink spoke of a terminal illness, a legacy of darkness that clung to his family like a shroud. A knock on the door shattered her concentration. Panic seized her as she tucked the letter away, barely managing to replace the ribbon. Yadiel's footsteps sounded louder, more potent, reverberating through the very ground beneath her. She barely had time to regain her composure when he entered, a tempest wrapped in tailored fabric, eyes alight with the thrill of combat, a stark contrast against the vulnerability she had just uncovered. "Beatrix," he said, his voice deep and hauntingly familiar, like the tolling of a bell. "You shouldn't be here." She turned, forcing a casual demeanor, but her pulse betrayed her. "I was just admiring your impressive collection." Her eyes flitted to the drawer, still half open. Yadiel's gaze narrowed, the air thickening with unspoken words. "What did you find?" She hesitated, the silence between them stretching, crackling with tension. "I found letters, beautifully written, if a bit morose." He stepped closer, the world around her fading as the weight of his presence enveloped her. "You should not read what doesn't concern you." "But it does concern me," she countered, stepping forward, all facade slipping away. "You're hiding something, Yadiel. You're hiding from me." Her heart thundered as she stood, daring to confront him. For a moment, he seemed ready to retreat, to pull back behind the wall he had so carefully crafted. But then, something shifted in his expression, a slight crack in the armor, revealing an unexpected tenderness that traversed the distance between them. "Do you know what it's like to carry a burden alone?" he asked softly, the fight ebbing from his voice. With a deep inhale, Beatrix stepped even closer, aching to touch the man before her, to bridge the widening chasm of secrets. "You don't have to be alone, if you let me in." "Let you in?" His voice turned possessive, wrought with pain. "Do you have any idea what that means?" In that charged moment, the air between them danced with something primal. She saw longing behind his dark eyes and realized with a jolt how desperately she wanted to be that refuge for him. The silence stretched, taut as a bowstring, filled with the weight of unacknowledged desires. "Perhaps I'm already in," Beatrix whispered, her pulse quickening as she reached for him, her fingers trembling just above his. The contact ignited a spark, a shared understanding born from their mutual battles against the world's unforgiving tides. Yadiel breathed deep, his body a question, a proposition muffled by hesitation. "And what then? Where does this tangled thread lead us?" "Wherever we choose," she replied, her voice bold. "But we can't choose if you keep pushing me away." His eyes bore into hers, and in that charged moment, the world outside ceased to exist. All that mattered was the space between them, a space filled with silence, secrets, and the electrifying promise of what might be. Scene 7. The assassination attempt. The lavish ballroom glimmered under the crystal chandeliers, an orchestra playing a soft waltz that masked the pulse of danger lurking just beyond the polished facade. Yadiel Sinclair stood near the edge of the dance floor, his attention flickering from the revelers to the faint shadows beyond the tall windows. The air was thick with perfume and silk, but there was an unsettling tension coiling inside him, gnawing at the edges of his carefully crafted demeanor. What should have been a night of celebration felt ominous, like the calm before a storm. Beatrix Caldwell, veiled behind a tailored suit that obscured her femininity, moved through the crowd with grace, her eyes bright with purpose. She leaned against the ornate doorframe leading to the garden, her pulse quickening as she observed Yadiel. Every glance he cast her way sent shudders of uncertainty through her, igniting a conflicted mix of admiration and fear. Each encounter felt electric, charged by the magnetic pull of their unspoken connection, yet fraught with peril. The air shifted abruptly as a piercing scream cut through the music, followed by the shattering of glass. Yadiel's instincts surged. He pivoted sharply, his heart racing. "Beatrix!" he shouted, but his voice was drowned by chaos erupting around them. Something dark darted through the crowd, a figure clad in shadows. Without hesitation, Yadiel surged forward, feeling the weight of his position and his hidden illness pressing against him like a lead weight. He lunged into the throng, seeking the source of panic. The scent of smoky gunpowder filled the room just before chaos unfolded. A gunshot rang out, echoing in the lavish ballroom, sending elegantly dressed guests sprawling to the ground. Beatrix's heart raced as she instinctively reached for Yadiel amidst the tumult, the adrenaline sharpening her senses. She spotted the figure, narrowed eyes, raised weapon, and in that moment her resolve crystallized. "Move," she yelled, lunging forward with an energy that astonished even her. Yadiel saw her charging through the crowd, the determination etched on her face, and felt a rush of conflicting emotions. "Get back!" he bellowed, raising his arm to shield her, even as he recognized the resolve in her step. "Do you have any idea what's happening?" "You can't protect me, Yadiel." "I know." Beatrix pressed, urgency fueling her every word. Then everything exploded into movement. A shattering of glass chimed like broken dreams. The assassin, revealed in a flash, aimed his weapon directly at Yadiel's heart. Without thinking, Beatrix pushed herself into the trajectory, thrusting a candle holder toward the thug, making him stumble. The moment stretched taut, suffocating. Yadiel caught Beatrix's gaze, a shared understanding passing between them. "You knew," he exclaimed, realization flickering as the adrenaline heightened their senses even further. "Not everything," she shouted, frustration lacing her voice, a thin sheen of fear palpable as she gripped him tighter. "But I overheard them talk, the plans to take you out. There was a warning." The assassin regained his footing, fire in his eyes as he leveled the barrel toward them, and Yadiel instinctively pulled Beatrix closer, ducking low. "Stay behind me," he commanded, voice low but commanding. "Together," she replied, her determination flaring. "We take him down." As if on cue, Yadiel stepped forward, a flicker of defiance in his blue-gray eyes piercing through the chaos around them. Heathing, steeling himself, he revealed the hidden knife fastened to his waist, sleek and deadly. "You'll have to get through me first." The exchange sent adrenaline coursing through Beatrix's veins, her heart racing in sync with Yadiel's impassioned stance. Rushing forward, they transformed the space around them, not mere victims of an assassination plot, but warriors intertwining their fates in a deadly dance. In an instant, the assassin lunged, but Yadiel, with speed and precision honed from years of danger, intercepted him. The clash unfolded like a violent symphony, punctuated by desperate gasps. Chairs toppled, priceless artifacts rattled, and the music faded to a distant echo as an all-consuming battle unfolded. But amid the tension, a flicker of something profound sparked between them, igniting their worlds in a collision of fear and bravery. Beatrix forced herself to focus, every moment echoing an unyielding truth. They had no time for pretense now. As Yadiel parried a blow and countered with his own, she dashed to his side, ready for anything that dared cross their threshold. The tension hung thick in the air, but their unspoken bond only tightened as they worked in concert, two against the tide of chaos. "After this, we talk," she breathed, rallying at his side, adrenaline coursing through both of their veins. "Together," he echoed, his sharp blue-gray gaze locked with hers, enkindling the flame of something beautiful amidst the dirty work of survival. Scene 8. An alliance forged in fire. The flickering candlelight danced across the exposed brick walls of Yadiel's hidden office, shadows merging into one another, creating an atmosphere thick with unspoken words. The scent of rich tobacco curled around them, a reminder of the high stakes they navigated together. Yadiel Sinclair, leaning against the sturdy oak desk, stared out of the narrow window, a view obscured by raindrop-smeared glass that blurred the outside world. His thoughts flickered like the flames of the candles, consumed by volatile images, betrayal, power, and the deep-rooted hunger for control that often slipped just beyond his grasp. The weight of his secret gnawed at him, but within this moment, when despair brushed against the intricate dance of their growing alliance, he found a bittersweet solace. "Are you ever going to stop brooding like a storm cloud?" Beatrix's voice cut through the heavy air, laced with feigned exasperation. She perched on the edge of a worn armchair, her disguise of masculine clothing giving her an audacious flair, but the slight tremor beneath her bravado betrayed her nerves. The flicker of a smile tugged at the corners of her mouth, but her eyes held steady determination. Yadiel turned, his dark brows furrowing as he studied her. "And let you think you know me? That would be folly." He stepped closer, the tension thickening around them. "We need clarity to dismantle Ramiro's grip on this city. You have ideas, Beatrix, the kind that could rattle him." "Let me worry about the ideas," she replied, her voice steadying. "What I need to hear from you is how you plan to keep your emotional storms in check when we confront him. I can't be your anchor if you can't hold steady." His laugh was a sudden rush of sound, a deep, rumbling amusement that caught her off guard. "An anchor, you say? Given how adeptly you've thrown yourself into danger, I'd say you're more like a guiding tempest." With an exasperated sigh, she rolled her eyes playfully. "Just promise me we won't end up as human shields, because you insist on being the lone wolf while I'm trying to be your, what did you call it?" "Ah, the guiding tempest." Yadiel straightened, the remnants of laughter quickly fading as the gravity of their mission settled between them. "If I'm the wolf, then you must be the cunning hare leading me into the thicket, yes?" Their gazes locked, an electric charge igniting the air around them. There, amid the dulcet tones of the storm outside, a current of yearning tempered by fear rattled through Yadiel, a deep-seated vulnerability he felt increasingly unprepared to confront. Without breaking eye contact, Beatrix leaned back, crossing her arms, a casual facade that could not hide the slight tremor of her fingers. "You're afraid of dependence. Let's clear that up, shall we? I won't be another person you need to manage." "I fear nothing but losing," he admitted, the words slipping out before he could catch them. "A king must reign supreme." Beatrix stepped forward, her voice lowering to a conspiratorial whisper. "And if you lose your kingdom, what becomes of the king who falls?" He inhaled sharply, a moment of unexpected vulnerability weaving through the storm he had always carried. It was a truth cloaked in shadows, yet here before her it felt almost tangible. "Everything I've built, everything I am, it will slip through my fingers like sand." A soft silence enveloped them, punctuated only by the raindrops drumming against the window. It exchanged the weight of burdens, pressing closer like a storm brewing between their souls. Beatrix's heart raced, her instincts urging her to breach the chasm between them, only to retreat under the pressure of tradition and reason. Yadiel, for all his formidable prowess, seemed captured by the tension, leaning in, his breath warm in the humid air. Then we shall storm together. You lead and I'll follow, he murmured, words tinged with a need she was not prepared to acknowledge yet. Together, then, Beatrix said softly, their proximity sparking something intoxicating and fresh, something more than mere alliance but not yet defined. As the thunder cracked outside, they both knew they stood on the precipice of change, the scent of impending rain mixing with something lush and irrevocably transformative. Everything shifted then, not just power dynamics, but their very essence. Fate had forged them into reluctant yet passionate allies beneath the weight of secrecy and desire. The intensity of the moment crackled like the storm outside, leaving them both breathless and uncertain as they forged ahead into shadow and light. Scene 9. The Curse Unveiled. The tavern windows shuddered against the relentless downpour outside, rain cascading in sheets, each drop tapping against the glass like the anxious heartbeats of the patrons within. Beatrix Caldwell stood stiffly at the bar, her brow furrowed, as she clutched a glass of bourbon, the amber liquid swirling restlessly within. Boisterous laughter erupted from a nearby table, but in her heart, a storm brewed far fiercer. Is it just me, or does the weather reflect the mood today? She quipped, breaking the tension hanging like mist between her and Yadiel Sinclair, who leaned casually against the wooden counter, his presence both commanding and unsettling. His dark eyes held a flicker of amusement, but the shadow lurking behind them betrayed an undercurrent of worry. Sometimes all it takes is a little rain to wash the lies away, Yadiel replied, his voice low and gravelly, rich with hidden meanings that drew her closer even as it tethered her to reality. What's on your mind, Beatrix? You look ready to unravel a mystery. She took a sip, letting the warmth spread through her, momentarily grounding her amidst the chaos. Is that what she was doing? Unraveling a mystery, or merely delaying the inevitable? I found something, she admitted, her voice steady as she pinned him with her gaze. Something about the curse. Yadiel straightened, a flicker of interest sparking in his eyes. Go on. It's not just an old wives' tale, Yadiel, she said, lowering her voice. Your illness, it's the result of a hex, a curse laid upon you by the Marcellus Syndicate. I found references to it hidden in the archives, left by those who disbanded before they could end it. A tense silence hung between them, the echoes of distant laughter only deepening the gravity of her words. Yadiel's expression hardened. How much do you really know about curses, Beatrix? More than I ever wanted to, she replied, stepping closer, the scent of whiskey and sweat mingling with the earthy aroma of damp wood. But this curse, it's specific. It targets generational power, wields it like a weapon. They knew you were vulnerable. A storm rumbled outside, a low growl intermingling with the clinking of glass and the murmurs of intrigue from across the room. Yadiel's jaw tightened, the tension in his body palpable. And you think that's why I'm sick? His voice held a mixture of disbelief and desperation. Beatrix, her heart racing, searched his eyes. One way or another, you have to confront your past. You can't keep running forever. He stepped back, hands sliding into his pockets, eyes narrowing. I built all this, he gestured vaguely to the tavern filled with laughter and life, on the foundation of my family's power. Do you think I would let something like a curse destroy it? Her breath hitched, layered with a thrill and an ache. You need to face them. We need to face them together. Together? He echoed, the word tasting bitter on his tongue. You think this is some romantic adventure? I'm not just a man fighting shadows, I'm a crime boss with enemies at every turn. This entire life is based on control, and you want me to relinquish that? The reality of her desire wrapped tightly around her heart, squeezing. Isn't that better than succumbing to a fate you can't control? Beatrix's voice softened, the intensity of their exchange unveiling layers of vulnerability she hadn't intended to show. I cannot bear to watch you suffer like this. Rain hit the windows harder, a tempest matching the turbulence in the room. Yadiel's expression shifted, a flicker of pain breaking through his stoic exterior. I'm losing everything, Beatrix. If I let you in, I might lose you too. Your health is slipping through your fingers, and you are afraid of vulnerability? Isn't that all we have left? She asked passionately. We could find a way to break the curse, Yadiel, together. A tense silence fell between them, thick with unspoken promises and the weight of potential heartbreak. He searched her eyes, seeking truth in the depths of her fiery spirit. And if that's a lie, then we'll write our own story, brand our own truth, she replied, daring him to join her in the dance of hope against despair. For a moment, the world outside ceased to exist, the storm fading into a distant hum, and all that remained was the urgency of their connection, the flickering desire mingling with fear. Yadiel stepped closer, their breath mingling in the charged air, the boundaries of their disparate worlds blurring. "It's dangerous to hope," he murmured, his voice a low rumble filled with longing. "Dangerous, but oh, how sweet the taste can be," Beatrix whispered back, their proximity igniting a spark that promised both peril and passion. And in that torrential downpour, as their eyes locked in a silent vow, they stood on the precipice of both a curse and a new beginning, their hearts racing against the storm that threatened to drown them both. Kidnapped for leverage. The world had never felt so fragile. Beatrix Caldwell, heart still racing from the night's earlier escapades, stood on the precipice of a thought just as the door swung open with a creak that devoured the silence. Shadows slipped into her modest chamber, cloaked figures with grim intentions. The air thickened, her pulse thundering in her ears like a war drum as her mind raced. This wasn't how it was supposed to go. She was supposed to be safe. Grab her, a voice barked, sharp and commanding. Beatrix barely had time to pivot before two burly men seized her arms, their grips like iron as they yanked her from her sanctuary. A muffled scream clawed at her throat, silenced by the darkness surrounding her. As they dragged her down the opulent hallway, adorned with gilded frames and lavish tapestries, the muted echoes of earlier laughter turned to dread. "What do you want?" she shouted, determination laced with fear. "You can't do this." With her own cries ringing in her ears, it was hard to recognize the fading warmth of her previous encounters. Yadiel's playful challenges, the lingering brush of his arm against hers, and the kindling of something deep within her. She kicked out, aiming for the shin of her captor, but he sidestepped with an agility that only added to her growing desperation. They shoved her into a dim-lit room cloaked in shadows, the scent of damp wood and stale air mixing with the electric dread that charged the atmosphere. She turned to face her captors, a small chance of defiance ignited within her. "You won't get away with this." A low laugh echoed from one of the figures. "Oh, we will. This is about your little king, the one who thinks he owns these streets." As they secured her hands, Beatrix's mind raced. Yadiel was a man of the nocturnal tides, born from the shadows, yet she had recently glimpsed more, vulnerability mingled with his power. She remembered the way he'd studied her beneath the flickering gaslights, intensity in his gaze that sent shivers down her spine. But now she had placed him in grave danger. Meanwhile, across the city, Yadiel Sinclair leaned against the mahogany edge of his desk, eyes sharp as daggers as he scanned the ominous message delivered by a traitor. "They have her. You know what you must do, bring the cash, or she disappears forever." Each word felt like ice in his veins, transforming the determined shadow he wore into panic. He gripped the letter tightly, a storm brewing within. "Sinclair!" A voice sliced through the tension. It was Dorian, his loyal right-hand man. "They're expecting us to tiptoe into their den like lambs." "Lambs?" Yadiel echoed, eyes darkening. "More like wolves. We'll hit them first before they can lay a hand on her." "Rash moves get people killed," Dorian warned. "We need a plan." "No more plans," Yadiel snapped, frustration erupting like a shaken soda bottle. "I'm not losing her, Dorian. Gather the men." As chaos unfolded, tension crackled in the air. The sound of hushed interventions behind Yadiel's resolute demeanor would have made him flinch, had his heart not been pounding solely for Beatrix. Back in the cold chamber, despair threatened to close around Beatrix like a vice grip. Her captors conversed in hushed tones, unaware of the burning strength simmering within her. Suddenly, a memory washed over her, igniting a fire within. Yadiel's gaze, fierce yet tender, ignited it a resolve to survive. She would not allow them to use her as leverage. Just then, the door burst open, revealing a chaotic flurry of movement. Yadiel stood at the threshold, regal yet wild. His presence ricocheted off the walls like a lightning bolt. "Get away from her," he commanded, his voice a deep growl. The atmosphere shifted. Beatrix felt the swell of relief mix with the warmth she felt each time she thought of him. What had once seemed forbidden now sparked fearlessness within her, a willingness to fight for love, unforgiving and relentless. Yadiel, she shouted, heart leaping. Don't, too late, one of her captors snarled, lunging for Yadiel. But Yadiel spun like a thunderstorm, fist colliding with the man's jaw, a perfect arc of force that sent him crashing to the ground. Another rushed him from behind, but Yadiel pivoted again, refusing to relent, a symphony of movement showcasing both brutality and grace. Each blow he dealt was not merely an act of violence. It was an invocation of dread against any that would harm Beatrix. With a swift glance shared between them, the dawning realization took hold. This was more than just a rescue. It was a collision of souls, igniting passions and fears as they faced a world that sought to separate them. "Stay close," he roared, pulling Beatrix near as they moved together, shifting into a dance of survival. In that moment, the line between duty and desire melted away, with only the urgency of their shared reckoning remaining. "You got us into this," Beatrix teased with a shaky breath, her heart still racing. "Don't leave me behind, you rogue." "I won't," he vowed with a fierce glint in his eye as they burst into the chaotic night beyond, hearts racing against the cacophony of their unfolding destiny. Scene 11. The Safe House. In the dim light of the safe house, shadows danced upon the fading wallpaper, a gentle reminder of the world they were momentarily hiding from. The room, cramped yet fortified with an air of secrecy, was filled with the faint aroma of aged wood, mingling with a hint of mustiness that seemed to sip at the edges of their senses. Yadiel Sinclair stood near the window, his silhouette framed against the waning daylight, the glass panes dimming like his mood. He fiddled with a brass keychain, its weight a distraction from the turbulence of emotion churning within him.